Hello, I'm Anna Richner, and I will be discussing the topic of college readiness tests, specifically the ACT and SAT. So, first and foremost, the argument that is being made is that college readiness tests are flawed in the way they dramatically influence acceptance into a university. So, instead, they need to be revised and reshaped into a way that will actually benefit the students and encourage getting an education after high school, rather than hindering and being the reason that they are turned away. The reason for this argument is that these tests are way too powerful in admission decisions. So they are overlooking at least 4 years of academic excellence, awards and honors, extracurricular activities, service hours, all these things that are super stressed in high school. They are now being overlooked by a simple test score. The next problem with this testing system is the cost. So those who are able to afford it can continue to pay to retake the exam over and over again and until they get the score that they want. Whereas those who don't have the means to keep spending money on the test, they usually can only take it once, and whatever score they get, that's what they have to keep. Not only that, but also some colleges have already started to implicate a new way of doing the admission process and have already gotten rid of the ACT and SAT. So if schools have already done it and they are not having a problem, that means that there are alternatives, and why not implement those into more schools and try and better the system. Although this may apply to many students, and their voices could be added to the strength of this position, I want to target Peter Schwartz, who is the College Board counselor. So this is where the tests are made, where they're administered, where the scores are kept record of. This is basically where all the action for the testing happens, and that's where the problem is. So that's where it needs to be addressed as well. So if the whole nation is complaining about these testing systems, then obviously the College Board is where things need to be changed. And so by targeting the College Board counselor, Peter Schwartz, I am trying to get him on board in realizing this problem. So it's important because we can agree that these tests have such a strong outcome on what students do after college and where they go. We can agree that it determines one's acceptance or not, or for some students, even if they even want to try and attend college. So we can agree that it's pretty manipulative in a way, that it determines way too much of a student's outcome. So the first claim to kind of branch off of is that the tests influence too much of a student's future. So one test score is determining if they want to get into the college they've been working so hard for, or if they go out of state or in state, or if they even apply. So it's just having too much of a weight on how students view themselves and how they want to pursue with their education. So to get some numbers up, 3.3 million plus students. This is the calculation for how many people are taking the ACT and or SAT annually. That is an incredible amount. And not nearly half of those people are going to college. So all of these people are putting in that time and money, which we'll get to the cost of that later. And so many are being turned away still from their college plans and their goals. I truly do think that this quote by Nicholas Tampio is really powerful in the way that he states this problem with this test system. So he says, the ACT does not ask students to express their own thoughts. They instead click, bubble, in order to get points. So this kind of broken down, simplified quote really expresses how much power a test is having on someone's life. And it's not even like getting to know the person. It's not having them think outside the box like we've always been told. No, instead it is filling out a test, bubbling in answers, and just conforming to their testing system. And everyone does the same thing. So we have to really ask ourselves, is that the best way to test such a wide variety of students and the way they learn and think and test, This isn't the best way to go about that. And I think that is so powerful. Okay, the next claim to really highlight is that these tests simply overlook years' worth of work and character. So 4 years of high school, of work just grained into your brain to do your best, to compete, to be outstanding, and to outshine other students. Years of that character building and work in the classroom is put aside by one test. So one test can overlook all of that and be the reason that the colleges don't even take the time to look at everything else you've done because of one score. So I think this is interesting to include because it kind of takes a different turn on this topic, but Teresa Hernandez spoke about how these tests can better predict demographic characteristics and kind of put people into a category of who they are rather than what kind of leader or, their performance over the years. So this is kind of interesting. It's not really how well do they perform or what things do they do, how are they as a student. It's more of what kind of person are they in even ways of race and demographics and how well can they strategize kind of type thing on this test. So I thought that was interesting to include. I just think it's strongest when it's coming from personal experience. So I'll make this part quick, but personal involvement, real life example. I am a hardworking student and I've gone above and beyond 4.5 GPA. I've done 5 clubs, I believe. I've done more than 200 hours of community service. I've worked 2 jobs. I've kind of, put myself everywhere I can, in every which direction, sports, academically, anything. And just so happens that I'm not the greatest test taker. So my low ACT of 24 and SAT of 1160, didn't get me into a school that had an average of around 28, 29 of an ACT. And that's just crazy to me, how they overlooked everything because of that low, so to speak, average test score. Okay, so I feel like this one is just very necessary to talk about. So the third strong claim is that the cost for all the prep classes and the actual test itself is not even a fair way. It's hurting students who can't afford to keep taking that and keep preparing. Alright, so between the ACT and SAT, each test ranges from around $47 to $67. And that's not even including an extra $30 late fee that could be added onto that. So let's say you take 2 tests. That right there is around $200, if not more. And it's suggested to take more, especially if, it's your first time and you didn't do super well. You want to do better, obviously. So 200 is just the bare minimum. It only goes up from there, and that is a pretty good amount just to take a test. What's really crazy about this all is that Honowar talks about this situation where so many test scores were released and they were wrong, or some just had a problem with it. So this quote says, 4,000 students were given the wrong scores, and another 375 students had received lower scores in error. So a test that is so high in value, that is pretty decently high in cost, can still have such great mistakes of more than 4,000 students getting wrong scores. So something so important, why isn't it being as important for the scores? Why is that not being prioritized and graded in a better way? So I just think that's crazy that something so important is not even seeming like it has that much of a value. Up next is the counter argument. So from the editorial board, there was a big concern on there not being a perfect solution. So instead of wasting time and wasting money on trying to find new ways, they wanted to instead just use what we had and try to perfect it. Although that may seem like the right approach, another article points out that still leaves students in neglect because it's one test and it's too strict of a format. So in all reality, an alternative is very necessary. And here are references.